Welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. It's my job to take the guesswork out of beekeeping for you. Today, we're going to be going over how to catch a swarm, and ideally one that's within reach. As you can see, I've backed my truck up to a peach tree. I'm located at the Folk Collaborative right outside of McKaysville, Georgia, and the owner of the grounds and I have an understanding when it comes to bees, and he gives me a call when some of his bees swarm, and I come over and shake them into a box. So we've got a swarm here. It looks like about 4, maybe 5 pounds of bees. Most likely there's an older queen in there already laying. Fortunately, I don't need a ladder for this. I have my truck. I can reach it just fine from the back of it. And I brought the proper equipment with me to shake them into. So if you're curious about how to catch a swarm under ideal circumstances, stick around. Okay, so the equipment I brought with me today, I've got an old bottom board and slatted rack that I no longer use, which is great for catching a swarm because it's not using up any of my main equipment. This is just something to temporarily serve the purpose for catching these bees, putting them on something rather than just the ground. I got myself a hive cover, and I also have one of my deep hive body boxes. It's missing a couple frames because this one's not completely cleaned up yet. It was still kind of in the process, but it was an easy grab, so I got it, and it'll be just perfect for catching a swarm in. Something that you need to consider when you're catching a swarm is keep in mind most of the time swarms are extremely docile. You're not going to necessarily need to suit up. Before they left whatever colony that they swarmed from, they gorge themselves on honey, so their stomachs are full. And just like you and I, when we've just eaten and our bellies are full, we don't feel like getting in a fight, and neither do they. So they're very docile because of that, and also they don't have a brood nest or any honey stores to defend. So their defenses are lower, but it doesn't mean that they won't sting. The weather conditions, if there's a storm coming, they could get kind of pissy and start to tap at you. So you may want to consider putting on at least a minimal veil. I'm not going to wear anything today unless they make me. We're just going to get right into this. I'm going to shake the bees into this box, and then I'm going to place the box down on the bottom board, and then I'm going to put the hive cover mostly over the top. Something that's interesting with swarms to keep in mind is that when they move into something and we shake them into something, they like to enter in from the top rather than the hive entrance. A hive entrance is used once a colony has become used to and established themselves in that as their home. But these bees are not familiar with this box, they're not familiar with this setup, so they're going to be using a top entrance to come and go from. And I'm going to just let them do it. So what I'm going to do is get my bottom board ready by placing it somewhere where I can just quickly, after shaking the bees, put this down onto the bottom board. I don't know how this is going to go. Sometimes when you shake bees, you kind of miss the box. Half of them make it in and the other half go everywhere all over the ground. You need to keep in mind to be careful because you don't know where the queen is going to be. But sometimes you spot the queen. And one surefire way to make sure that the bees stay in the box is if you do spot the queen, that you've got a queen cage handy to be able to catch her and put her into. If you can catch that queen, great, because swarms are kind of fickle. Not testy, I wouldn't say that's the right word. They may not necessarily stay in your box just because you shake them into it. Often they could possibly swarm again, or after you take them home, they could leave and all of your efforts were for nothing except for the experience. But ideally, once I shake these bees into this box, what I want to do is put the deep hive body on the bottom board, take my top hive cover, and just put it mostly on the top. Right here there's an opening that you can't see, but the bees can come and go freely from it. Then I'm going to get down off the truck, put this on the ground, and then drive my truck out of the way. Hopefully, if I got the queen and she's in this box, the bees up here will eventually smell her pheromones down here and reorient. I would leave the box here and then come back at sundown once all the bees have mostly gathered into the box, pick them up, load them into the truck, and take them to the spot where I plan on keeping them from now on in one of my nearby apiaries. Now I can tell from the height that they're at and the weight of this deep hive body box, which has fully drawn out comb, it's kind of heavy. I need to back my truck up a little bit so I can stand on the toolbox and be able to hold this in one arm while I shake with the other. So I'm going to make that adjustment real quick. Okay, so I've got my truck backed up. I'm standing on the toolbox and kind of the roof. My deep hive body box is right here. I'm going to pick it up here in a second. As you can see, I'm much higher, and so my level is much easier to get to with the bees. And plus, with this box being pretty heavy, I don't have to hold it nearly as long. You know what? With it also being this close, I could just shake them and hope that they land in the box, especially if I'm not sure if they're going to be aggressive or not. And I just got stung once, so I'll probably put some protective gear on. All right, so I'm back. I've got me some full protection suit on, and since I do have this extra protection, I feel like it's going to be okay to hold the box and shake without worrying so much about stings. I'll just have a lot of bees flying around my head. I give it a good shake. I got bees rolling out. I got to be careful when I put this box down because there's bees everywhere and I don't want to squash any of them, but especially the queen. Now what's going to happen at this point, the queen's pheromone is all over this branch. If this was just out in the wild, I would cut the branch down, keep shaking the bees off of it, and throw the branch away. But because this is another man's orchard, I don't want to do that. This peach tree means income for him. So the best I can do is just continue to shake it, but that was a really good shake. So I feel very confident that we got the queen. So here's my deep hive body box sitting on the toolbox in the back of my truck. As you can see, some bees shook onto the truck. A lot of bees have taken flight to the air because they're disoriented. They're like, what the heck? They're used to going up to that branch. But the majority of the bees are staying in these frames. If we look closer, especially along the edges, you'll see bees like this one fanning the Nasanov pheromone out of the rear end of her abdomen. That is the bee's way of saying, here is home, come this way. So the goal now would be to get down, grab this box, set it on the ground, put the hive cover on it like I told you, with its being slightly ajar so the bees can come and go from the top, and get this truck out of the way so they can orient on the least amount of things as possible and know where their queen is. So with the truck out of the way, I've set the entire deep hive body, bottom board, and hive cover down directly below where the swarm was, and in fact there's hardly any bees gathering up there at all. One way, if you do have that problem of the bees gathering back where you shook them from, take your smoker and smoke the heck out of the branch where they were on, and that smoke will help to mask and get rid of the queen's pheromone. The majority of these bees are coming and going from the hive entrance. That's great. They're doing the march, coming in the box. We've got some clustered around the sides. Be aware sometimes when you see clusters of bees, the queen could be in that cluster. One way to check for that is to take your finger or a twig and just kind of bump them off, brush them gently, and look for the queen. I don't see her in there. And here's how I've got the back of the hive looking, with the hive cover slightly ajar. So we've got more bees up here fanning that Nasanov pheromone to help everyone locate where home is. Now, although this little fun project started off with me getting stung on the shoulder, the bees did not continue to be aggressive afterwards. It was nice to have this on while I was shaking them. There have been plenty of swarms I've caught in the past without needing any gear at all, but especially if you're a beginner, go with your comfort level. If you feel like you need some protection, do it. In this case, I had been marked once, and so that alarm pheromone definitely was telling the others, get that guy. But I'm glad they didn't keep it up. This was an easy catch, easy shake into a box. And like I said earlier, the only thing left to do now is to go home, get a drink, come back at sundown, put these girls in the back of my truck, and take them to my nearby apiary and set them alone and leave them alone for at least a week. That gives them a chance to settle in, do their thing. And right now, in this area, we're actually on the verge of a honey flow. So that's good news for them, and it's good news for me. If you like this video, drop me one of these, tell your friends about the Hive Doctor, and I'll see you in the next video.